Hello survivors and welcome to another video. So in this video we're going to be taking a first look at the League Season 3 unique characters, and those are the characters that are going to be available to purchase your season tokens in the season store. They are Shawn and Nick, and they're going to be replacing Tara and Sandy. And one of the first things I'm going to be looking at is obviously one of the most important things is, are they going to be Generation 2 6 stars? And they are. And that means obviously they're going to have a total stat amount to be 5,300. And that was very important. We obviously had some free-to-play characters come out in the Pick Your Path event, which were Generation 1 6 stars. And if that was going to continue into leagues, that was going to be a massive letdown. So that's one place where we're not being let down. But we are unfortunately being let down a little bit in other places. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We're going to look at Shawn first, who is going to be replacing Tara in the 15,000 token slot. And Shawn is a damage dealer. He has 2,189 attack, 1,588 defense, and 1,620 HP. So not the hugest amount of attack as a damage dealer within Generation 2, but his HP and defense stats are pretty balanced, so that's kind of nice. His trait is strong, and obviously, like I said before, his role is damage. And his adrenaline rush is called Unbearable Barrage. It is a recharge rate of 85 AP cost, so instantly it's a bit too slow. Deal 425% damage to one enemy and all enemies adjacent to it. This character and up to 2 teammates get 50 crit for 3 turns. Obviously, like I said, it's almost writing him off instantly in terms of his viability right now, just because within free-to-play, there are no AP leaders. There aren't very many AP leaders within Premier either. They've only really just been released for melee characters. We've had Alice and we've had Camilla, who I think were the very first characters who are attacking leaders who gave strong characters AP on attack, which is just insane. The only other character that I think was around was Madison, but she's a rainbow lead, so obviously the boost isn't as high. When you've got 85 in AP cost, you still rely on being attacked, even with a huge leader and a huge weapon, to get your third turn rush, or you're going to have to get commanded on the third turn. So there is still some reliance on other sources. It's still, regardless of whether you've got huge or not, it's still really slow. So that's a big disappointment in terms of the AP cost. And I kind of would never want to see an 85 AP cost character come out on an attack team, because it's just too slow for attack. On defense, it's a little bit too slow. After 2 turns, you can get 84 AP, so you can get that 1 AP from another source. Percentage gain on AP within rushes, but on attack teams, no thank you. Now we look at his active skill, and it's called Attack Up and Focus. It has an initial cooldown of 3 turns. This character and up to 1 teammate gets 75% attack and focus for 2 turns. Now that is actually a really nice active skill. You know, obviously he's a damage dealer, so he's guaranteed to get that 75% attack and focus for 2 turns, but because his rush is already extremely slow, the biggest issue is you're going to have to waste yet another turn to do this active skill. Now you don't really want to use him as a support character, especially as it's just completely random who this 75% attack goes to. However, if you did have Alpha on the same team as him and she did get it, her rush would be massively boosted, and obviously she has Decapitate, which is a really important specialist skill. So I think his active skill is good, and I think his rush is good. It's just a bit too slow, and I think this is a potential character that right now isn't great, but in the future could get better. Sort of like how Tyrese was when he was initially released, was just a bit too slow, but the second an AP leader came out for free-to-play in Blue Andrea, basically Tyrese got boosted, he got buffed, because his rush was just that bit faster. He could be potentially getting commanded turn 2, he could potentially be going off turn 3 without a command. So that just wasn't going to be the case beforehand. So in the future, if we get a melee version of Andrea where all melee characters get huge AP on attack and 40% attack, that's going to be great. Shawn's going to be instantly boosted, and he's going to, you know, his status is going to be boosted up from, you know, being a reasonable character, like okay, to being actually pretty decent. Now he has got a specialist skill, and it is Waste Not. Obviously it's not one of the ones that we really need within free to play, but it's not too bad. When the specialist kills an enemy with an attack or adrenaline rush, any excess damage is dealt to 1 adjacent target. Now we don't really know how this is going to work with his rush. Every other Waste Not character has got single target high damage. You know, you're talking about your Red Richards, your Blue Icos, in terms of you do huge amount of damage to one character, you kill that character, then Waste Not goes to the next character. However, I'm not really sure how it's going to work with an adjacent rush. Let's say 3 of those characters are weak. Will that carry over? Will that carry over with waste not? Or is it only on the initial target that you actually focus on, the initial, character that you attack? It probably is on the initial character that you attack, but we just don't know. Time is going to tell, basically. Waste not is not a great one, like I said. It's not terrible. We really need decapitate. So this character is just sort of like how I felt with John. It just sort of like was a green character that does damage, and that's basically what this guy does, and he's a bit slow. Both of those characters probably could get buffed in the future with it, like I said, with an AP leader coming out. The next character is Nick, and he is also classified as a damage dealer, so he's going to be an attacking character, at least how they assume he's going to be. Attack is 2,156, defense is 1,618, and HP is 1,617. Now, his stats again are going to be Generation 2, but they're not really Generation 2, and I'll break it down in a minute, and it's a bit of a letdown how his stats have gone. His trait is fast, and his role is damage, and we'll look at his adrenaline rush. It is a 76 AP cost, so it's not too slow, so he's going to be getting his rush fast enough. Deal 600 main damage, and minus 15 AP to up to 3 enemies. Now, the reason that his attack stat is kind of useless is because 600 main damage is not going to scale from his attack. If you scaled his attack somehow to 100,000 damage, he's still going to do exactly the same amount of damage as he's going to do if he had 100 damage with his adrenaline rush. Main damage is a flat damage source. It never scales, and that means that attack stat is only going to affect his basic attacks. And if you compare it to the current Premier that's up right now, which is Dale, he also has a main rush, but his attack stat is much lower, 1,500. And that extra stat that he's missing compared to Nick has been spread over defense and HP, where it's kind of where you'd want it on Nick as well. So that is a big letdown, and that kind of depreciates the value of Nick. It kind of puts him down into Generation 1 6-star territory again, because if you've got a support character in Generation 1, they probably have around 1,600 defense and 1,600 HP, and that's pretty much what Nick is a support character. But we'll take a look at his active skill, and it's okay. I'm not really a big fan of focus on actives. It is a turn 3 initial cooldown. Up to 3 teammates get focus for 2 turns and gain 15% AP. Now, the reason it's okay is because that 15% AP can be pretty useful. If you're using him against a ranged team, obviously he doesn't even need to have leader bonuses. He can be used against ranged teams and be kind of safe. You can basically topple a Tyrese over on his rush, which is actually kind of nice, not having to command Tyrese. So obviously Tyrese doesn't lose a turn. On melee teams, it's not going to work so well, but potentially, like I said, it's a kind of weird situation where both Nick and Shawn in the future could become stronger based on other characters that get released, and it's kind of obvious which character that's going to be. It's going to be a melee AP leader. Whether we get that within free-to-play is anyone's guess, however. Looking at the specialist skill, it is a command, so it is going to be the first fast command, and now we've got a command within every trait, and it is going to be a free-to-play command as well. So the very first fast command is going to come out as a free-to-play, which is great. Obviously, fast is good against ranged teams, and strong is good against melee teams, and we've got one of each command now within free-to-play, which is fantastic. And command is one of the better specialist skills, no doubt, but it is less useful now for ranged teams just based on the fact that there is a AP leader that has been released for ranged teams. It was Moon who was saying this in my live streams. Basically, obviously, you don't need command as much on ranged teams now because of Andrea, and you kind of need the extra damage output and the extra cleanse as well. I noticed significant change in my success rate replacing my Sadiq with Guardian to Ezekiel just based on the fact that he could cleanse in pair and the Guardian shields with bonuses. So that's Nick and Shawn. The other characters that are available in this season store are Garrett in the ascendable slot. I'm really disappointed with this. If they're not going to give a disarm and a decapitate in the first 2 slots as the uniques, they 100% should have had Tyrese in this slot. I was saying this on my live streams. It had to happen. It hasn't. Garrett is really average. I would avoid, if I'm honest. He's not great. He's not going to be changing anything for anyone's team. He's just basically a character that is in there. He's not even fun. It isn't like Naya, who is actually kind of fun, which is cool with her specialist skill. Garrett is kind of just useless in that slot. At least Season 1's Kelly command being quite important as well. The last 2 seasons have been useful in this slot. Garrett, not so much. We also have 5-star Victor being the first 5-star character, and in the 5-star world, he was a beast. 44 AP, defense down to everybody. He was used a lot in those turn 1 attack teams. Next up, we have Jackson, who is a bit strange for me. He's just a medic. I'm not really sure what he's doing in there. He doesn't really do anything. There's no bonuses that he's going to add, which could be useful. It's not like last season we had Heath, who was actually pretty decent in terms of buffs. It isn't like season 1 where we had Kate, again, which is pretty useful in terms of buffs. Jackson is just kind of but he is rare. That's the only thing. So if you did have leftover tokens, you could potentially say, I'm going to pick him up just in terms of the potential that he gets ascendable in the future. But it's unlikely just because he has been a league store. So they probably won't, prioritize this guy as an ascendable. And the last character in the season store is actually pretty funny. It's probably the best character that's in the season store in terms of a character that I think a lot of people are going to want. In terms of how useful she is, she's not going to be mega useful in today's like meta or anything like that. But there are a lot of people out there who are going to want this character, and it is blue, ties that bind, season 3 Clementine, and it is a character that a lot of people haven't got. She is on RNG Will. This is the very first time I think a Clementine's been like actually free to play, like claimable. This is going to maybe be the first time someone can get their hands on Clementine, which is really great, especially for Telltale fans. And I think this is fantastic to add it, especially as we are coming to the end of season 4. And I have said I really do hope there's going to be an event around that last episode, or again, it's just going to be another massive letdown, unfortunately. So those are the characters that are in this season's store. Do tell me what you think about the 2 neat characters, though. What do you think about Nick? What do you think about Shawn? Are either of those characters going to make it onto your teams? Do you see special ways they can work that I haven't really noticed? But do tell me what you think. And as always, guys, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.